going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music. Today I want to talk about this album right here. This is Floating Points' Elaenia? I really do not know how to pronounce anything anymore. Released on his own imprint, Pluto Records, on November 6, 2015. Seeing as how I just recently gushed about how much I love Floating Points' music, and if you want to understand what I'm talking about there, go back and check out this video over here. Now seemed as good a time as any to talk about a record that's very near and dear to me, and let you know why, if you've never checked out Floating Points' 2015 masterpiece, why you might want to give this guy a listen. So, with all that being said, yeah, let's talk about this guy. So a bit of background for those who don't know, Sam Sheppard, aka Floating Points, born in Manchester in 1986, has been a critical darling for almost the last 2 decades. His first release came out all the way back in 2009, and since then the man has basically been putting out bangers every single year, with releases spanning over a whole slew of imprints and labels like Planet Mu, Ninja Tune, David Byrne's Luca Bop, as well as his own aforementioned Pluto and Iglo record labels. In 2015, he released this album right here through both his own label Pluto and David Byrne's Luca Bop, with the title track said to be inspired by Sheppard experiencing a dream about a bird that had been engulfed in a forest after he had been reading the speculative fiction novel Some 40 Tales from Afterlives by American neuroscientist David Eagleman, which Sam himself also holds a PhD in. Originally meant to be a single track, he was eventually talked into turning the album into 7 little suites. The critical response to this album was fantastic, with it receiving an 85 average on Metacritic, several outlets putting it on their end of the year charts, and the highest score having this to say, and the lowest score having this to say. So where do I stand in all of this? I absolutely love this record, and despite the fact that it may not be the type of record that sticks in the forefront of my mind in terms of recommendations that I'm going to readily spout out to friends of mine, I still highly recommend that you check it out because it's just an absolutely one-of-a-kind listening experience. And part of that just comes from the fact that I do not understand Sam Sheppard's secret is, but this man just makes records that sound absolutely amazing. The sonic engineering, the texture, the way that the instruments sound on here, the way that he uses sonic space is absolutely second to none. And I think this was the first album that I'd heard from Floating Points that just really just floored me on a purely sonic level. But on top of that, some of the tracks on here are highly emotional, highly contemplative, very immersive, and just create an atmosphere that's absolutely one of a kind. As somebody who has listened to a lot of ambient and ambient house, ambient techno records out there, this one's one of a kind because it does have droney sort of elements to it, but ultimately the pieces on here feel like they're ever evolving and very organic and never come off as repetitive as some of the most highly ranked ambient music out there. Looking at you, Global Communication. Yeah, that's gonna win me some friends. But even beyond that, the 2 pieces where he goes into full band mode, Silhouettes 1, 2, and 3, and Peroration 6, the closing track on here, are 2 of the finest post-rock pieces I've ever heard. Silhouettes is this absolutely incredible, intoxicating 3-part suite that starts very quietly and then just erupts into this amazing climax before dipping back down again. And it's all done with these just absolutely gorgeous strings, shuffling drums, and just a sense of atmosphere and emotion that I find that most bands that do this for a living cannot capture the magic that Floating Points has created with that one track. And then similarly on the final track, with its steady build up to one of the most dramatic endings to a record I think I've ever heard in my entire life. I think this closing track on this may be one of the best closing songs of all time. Much like how the ending of No Country for Old Men gets me every time, the ending to this record gets me every single time. In between those moments, the opener, there's just this really simple sort of synth arpeggio that sets the tone for the record, comes off as being so understated that I would forgive you for thinking that it's just kind of an throwaway introduction, yet there's something very enticing that sort of sets up the record with this track that I absolutely love. If anything, I kind of feel like the span between the title track, Argentine, and Thin Air is a little bit too samey, and I find when I'm listening to the album front to back that it does sort of blend together in that little space. But that being said, the atmosphere between that stretch of music is still very cool, very atmospheric, and definitely I find myself really enjoying those 3 tracks in a row, as I feel like they really set up what I think is one of the best tracks on here for Mamish, which is this almost beautiful synth keyboard and very understated percussion ballet that's going on. And it's just so graceful and so beautiful that I just can't help admire it as a track. Honestly, if you're looking for what I think could be considered one of the greatest ambient records of all time, do not sleep on this. Make sure you check this out, and make sure you check out everything else that Floating Points has done, because quite honestly, the boy don't miss. And considering this is his first release, and everything that he's basically done since the release of this has been equally fantastic, I can't recommend this enough as a great place to start when it comes to getting into Floating Points music. So with all that being said, yeah, I think I'm just going to leave it there. So that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching. If you've listened to this record for yourself, please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. If you want to hear this record for yourself, please head over to my WordPress blog, because that's where I post music links to any of the records that I talk about on this channel. And make sure you go follow me over on Twitch for Live from the Record Room. There you can hear me play records like the ones that I talk about in these videos, as well as a whole host of other records in my collection that I don't get a chance to talk about on this channel. Links to everything, as always, down in the description. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Thanks as always for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. So until then, peace out!